Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your gracious attention. Locale photo is my trip to Germany's Rhine region, specifically to the Remagen Airport townships, about 30 miles south of Cologne, for my personal interest in military archaeology. And as such, the local Germans casually make amusing remark that all Americans want to visit Remagen, which is on the west bank of the Rhine River due to its historical American importance. Photo depicts 600-foot Lehrmach mountain peak on the east bank of the Rhine River, viewed from the west bank of Rhine at Remagen Township. This is where U.S. Army crossed into Germany March 1945 for final battles in Großdeutsches Reich, or Greater German Reich. In March 1945, as World War II progressed in Europe, the Rhine River was a major waterway obstacle, preventing both American and British Commonwealth armies from entering Western Germany. For the Germans fought fanatically on their own home soil and systematically destroyed all major bridge crossings on the Rhine to prevent the Western Allied armies from crossing over to its east bank. For example, the massive Cologne Railway Bridge up the river was blown up when U.S. aircraft prematurely set off its demolition charges on a bombing run, which also trapped German forces in Cologne City and resulted in famed Cologne Cathedral tank battle, when German Panther tank ambushed two American Sherman tanks from the Köln Hauptbahnhof Tunnel, or the Cologne main train station tunnel, only for this Panther tank to be destroyed literally few feet away from Cologne Cathedral entrance by newly introduced U.S. Pershing heavy tank. If interested, look it up yourself on YouTube combat footage for Cologne Cathedral tank battle. U.S. Supreme Commander Eisenhower allowed the British to conduct final operations in conquest of Western Germany. The U.S. Third Army under famed General Patton was relegated only to guard its southern flank, thus somewhat dismissive of U.S. Army prowess and efforts. Patton lamented against Eisenhower that this is when a Supreme Commander becomes more allied than American. However, by chance, in March 1945, the bridge at Remagen was still intact, for German demolition failed to destroy this bridge. Thus, U.S. Army threw as much armor and personnel across the Rhine as possible before bridge collapsed from incessant German counterattacks. Interestingly, this was the second time U.S. Army crossed this Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen. In 1922, after end of World War I, U.S. took control of Western Imperial Germany sector, of which U.S. horseback cavalry crossed this exact same bridge to take up occupation duties. Fast forward to 1945. For us military history buffs, there were many tidbits to entertain. Number one, we all know from high school history class, Roosevelt signed secret agreement with Soviet Stalin that Eastern Germany will be under Soviet domain after World War II ended. Unbeknownst to American troops thinking they could conquer Berlin capital as final war prize, all Eastern Germany was to be handed over to the Soviets after World War II has over. Thus, Americans die for territory with which they will never politically control. The closest U.S. Army got was Magdeburg, some 100 miles southwest of Berlin. Number two, Remagen Airport townships were the least practical geographic region for such armor crossing. When you travel from western Remagen across the Rhine River onto eastern Airport Township, a 600-foot rocky mountain called Lehrmach stood immediately in front of the bridge. There is a train tunnel through this mountain, nowadays long abandoned and blocked off, and was an easy German ambush choke point upon tunnel exit. There are roads along Rhine east bank going north and south, but southern way was a dead end as the Rhine wind and turned before arcing southwest back to France. Hence, U.S. Army fought 10 miles on the northern road before hitting open country at Bad Honnef Township for its armor columns to flank out. Thus, these Rhine roads were defense choke points like fighting in a narrow valley. Only extra American armor and manpower overwhelmed local German defenses. Number 3. At top of Erpele in 1945, there was a 2-centimeter flak Wehrling, or via colloquial American term, 4-barrel 20mm anti-aircraft gun platform, mounted with integrated top-secret gunnery radar for all weather engagements, like fog, dense cloud cover, etc. Its Flak Commandeur was ordered to destroy this radar when Americans were about to overrun its position, such as placing a Stickgranaten, or stick grenade, onto the radar apparatus upon egress. Unfortunately, he neglected to do so before withdrawing, thus was executed by flying court-martial for failing to obey standing orders. Hence, all this is simply me being Curious George by nature, for I simply wanted to appreciate what I was viewing or walking upon without falling into the typical consumer tourist trap. Hence, if any party desired to reach me directly, my email address is displayed above. This is Leon Uwe Lee, signing off.